Minneapolis Mayor and Vice Chair of the Democratic National Committee, R.T. Rybak, joins us live. Mayor, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, something the president has been criticized for not doing in the first two debates is to talk more about his plans for the future, looking ahead, his vision for a second term. How does he accomplish that in the remaining days?
Well, actually, the president's been talking about that and actually doing that for 4 years, and it's going to stay focused in the key areas. First, we're going to make things in America. The president stood up and saved the auto industry. He's going to keep focused on manufacturing. We're going to invest in the infrastructure we need. That means we're going to continue to build the roads and the bridges and the technology infrastructure we need. We're going to invest in the people. The dollars I've here in Minneapolis been able to use from the federal stimulus program are going to continue to be the ones that help us retrain workers. And the president's going to continue to focus on places where he's had success. We're on a track to double the amount of exports in this country, and that's been hugely successful. And you know, it's really been helpful for our small businesses as well. Finally, we're going to have a tax plan that's fair for everyone. We're going to ask those at the very top to pay a little more. We're going to keep the taxes down on the middle class and small business, where the president's given, I think, 18 tax cuts to small business. And that'll all be part of a second-term agenda that will also be about fairness. So the first thing he signed was equal pay for women. Romney, 4 years later, can't even commit to that, but President Obama certainly will continue that work.
All right, let's talk taxes. You talk about raising the percentages, or at least the amount that top earners would pay. A number of nonpartisan fact-checking organizations say if you tax the top earners at 100%, it still wouldn't make a dent in where we are. So, as part of that conversation, where do we cut back? Where do we, cut waste, cut programs that are spending our tax dollars in inefficient ways?
Well, you're making a really good point because government shouldn't just be about spending. That's what I've had to do as mayor. That's what the president has done as president. He walked into a crisis where the economy was in collapse, and some spending had to take place to get the economy stimulated. 31 straight months of private sector job growth proves that works. But the president will continue to go for efficiencies and making everything as efficient as possible. There are a couple big places we're going to stop spending. Thankfully, the president has gotten us out of Iraq, so we can bring those dollars and the dollars from winding down in Afghanistan back home to partly be used to rebuild the economy and partly to help balance the budget.
Is it fair to talk about the financial impact of winding down the wars overseas when they were already factored into budgetary negotiations and plans moving forward? That's not found money.
Well, it's extremely important to talk about that in an election because the president has delivered on his promise to get us out of the Iraq fiasco that was draining our economy. It's important to think about this in the foreign policy debate because Mitt Romney seems to be banging the drums of war. And I think we have to ask that question because we cannot afford another ill-advised adventure like Iraq. The president has been about diplomacy and trying to bring this world together in some way. A war is deeply costly on a human level. It frankly is also very costly and extraordinarily so in the case of Iraq, and we can't afford more misadventures like that either in the human or the financial sense.
But at what point do we acknowledge that diplomacy may not be working, and what is the cost of, say, allowing Iran to end up with nuclear weapons?
Well, it's very true that in the foreign policy you need to balance very tough actions with diplomacy. The president, no one can question whether he's taken tough actions. Bin Laden is certainly one example, but all the other work that's been taken against the al-Qaeda leadership and frankly a very controversial use of drones in some cases has been about the fact that we're in a tough world and you have to be tough. But you also have to recognize, and I think Iraq is a great example, that it's important to find ways that we can come together. You know, if you get mad at your neighbor, I guess you could throw eggs at their house all the time, but sometimes you go over there and you try to talk to them. Now, the world's a lot more dangerous than any of our neighborhoods right now, and that's why we need a president who's got a cool head, who will have diplomacy, and I think sadly he's running against somebody who can't seem to go to the Olympics without creating an international incident. The president has been somebody who has been able to get partnerships around the globe. And I don't think the American people, while we are leaders in the world and should continue always to be, the American people should not be the ones who are paying for, in both the pocketbook and with our lives, all of the challenges around the world. We need partnerships, and that's important.
And both candidates will certainly get to talk about that tomorrow night. Minneapolis Mayor R.T. Rybak and also Vice Chair of the DNC, thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you.